Hello everyone and welcome YouTube to another MTR FAB video. This week we're going to do some fabrication work on this factory DR. This is a Suzuki DR 300 OEM pipe. And as you can see, it has some rot issues. Now, why do I have this? How did we end up here? And why am I fixing it? Well, this is a new bike that my old man purchased, used secondhand, and upon inspection when he got it home, he found that there were a couple little chunks in the paint missing, and he started poking around, and then he gave it to me after he had sanded it down and realized there were some issues, and said, you know, let me know what you think. Well, what do I think? I think it's junk. But I think we can fix it, and I'm going to give it a shot. And so today I'm going to share with you guys how I'm going to do that and what my thought process is behind it. Now, the only reason why we're going to attempt repairing this is because they're like unobtainium apparently. They're hard to find even on eBay. Aftermarket solutions are out of stock and or back ordered for significant amounts of time. It's the beginning of summer and he wants to ride this thing. The first thing you need to do when you're thinking about repairing something like this is determine where the rot stops. So I've already punched holes all in it like you can see, and now I'm going to mark it out and start to cut chunks of this back until I get to good clean metal, and then I will replace whatever I cut out with a material with a similar gauge thickness. And the reason why you would want similar gauge thickness is you don't want something that would require more temperature than the base metal to melt. Otherwise you're going to just sit there and poke holes in this thing again and again. Alright, here are the tools that I expect to need for this job. I got some tin snips and some tin over here. Well, I'd say tin, it's sheet metal. I think it's 18 gauge. I've got a Sharpie, got some safety glasses, I got the death wheel, I got a hammer, and I'm ready to rock. Alright, so we're going to start cutting. You make a patch like this, you don't want to put just a patch over this, which would be the shortcut to this, okay? If I do that, all that's going to happen is the same thing, and it's going to get really quick, and it's going to happen out here instead of right here. Now, you're going to cut this out, and we're going to put a patch over it, and we might have a little bit of overlap up there, but we're only going to talk about like an 1/8 inch of overlap. We're not going to leave all of this in here. I think what's happened with this pipe over time is it's a small displacement 300cc motorcycle. If it didn't get ridden hard, that this section would probably never fully come up to temperature, and this probably just sat and got condensed again and again. It's a lot of miles on these, so I expect that, you know, his will get hot enough when he rides. He usually rides a pretty long distance, so onward. We're going to cut this patch out. We're only going to do one side of this repair at a time. We're going to focus on this side. As you can see, I got my cut lines, and that's what I'm shooting for. And I'm going to look at the material that I pull out of there and verify that my rust issue is minimal. Alright, now that we got it cut out, you're going to see you know, how this always works. So, you know, yeah, you got a little hole there. Oh, that's not that bad, right? We're going to pull that open, and we're going to take a look at the back of this plate here. Oh yeah, so when you thought I was cutting too much, now this is an example of I'm going to try to do as quick of a repair as I can, because the reality is whatever I do is not, you know, long for this world, because the rest of it cannot be far behind. I did feel like I had pretty good bite on all this metal, so you know, I'm confident he'll get a couple years out of it if he runs it that long. And maybe he'll find an aftermarket solution in between. But for now, we're going to fix this thing up so he can use it. And I think that's probably enough. Now what I'm going to go do is go in the shop and take that sheet metal. I'm going to trace this out and try to put the similar dimension bend on it. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than this area. And we're going to tack it right on over. And as you can see, I did notice that there was a crack further down, but it really, again, feels meaty enough that I can just fire a weld in there and keep this. And then we're going to cut it out and do this other side. I want to see how successful we are over here before I waste any more time cleaning the other side. So we're going to go forward with this side first. If you got to clean up the perimeter of the area, back about a 1/2 inch, enough so you're not going to get any other contaminants from the top surface. We're going to shoot nice cold tack welds right on top of each other, essentially stacking them one after the other. and we'll move around trying to move our heat. This isn't like, you know, thin sheet metal, but it's going to behave different because it's so rusty. The insides of it seem alright, really. I want to leave my piece not only wider, but I want to leave it longer so I can put a flange on the end of it. So actually something like that would be wide enough. And I'm going to just hack this off at that width. And we'll be close enough. And I'm going to start kind of like laying it in there and seeing how I'm going to make that fit. I'm going to finalize this hole, and then I'm going to start cutting the top of this to line up with this, and we'll work our way down. I'm doing sheet metals, you know, pick a side. I'm going to mark this, and I'm going to keep using that side out, that side up, and then that will fit gradually better. If you keep forgetting and keep flipping this piece, it's not going to get any better for you. So pick a side, work from that side. Sorry guys, I've been ripping ahead here, but take a pause. I've got the welder out now. I've got my piece, the edge and the boundaries are all cleaned up. I've got approximately the curve I want to. The material's approximately the same thickness as the parent material. You can see how I've started to fit the panel. And I'm going to tack weld this panel from this end in. And all I want it to do is sit on the edge. I want nice, hot, quick tacks. And we're going to see how successful this is. And I'll show you the process as I go. The welder turned right up because I'm not scared. And by the way, do yourself a favor, clip that tip. And then, oh, now I know I got gas coming to the tip. I'm not going to get a porous first weld. I'm going to hold this in position and tack it. I'm not going to show you that, guys, because I only got so many hands. First tack, in and out, big gap. You see it's possible, guys. We're going to just slowly work our way around, making sure we're not going to put ourselves out of alignment further down the road. Challenge one, you see how it's trying to creep around that circle? I'm going to rely on the fact that I got a couple layers of metal there, and I'm going to kind of drag from the right to the left and try to bridge that gap, right? Because I know I got a solid bead of weld here, and I know I got fresh metal here. Now, this is all tender right up here, and these are going to be your challenge spots first, and that's why I wanted to do them first. I kind of want to keep this section as cold as possible. Take your time, wire brush is your friend, get it started, get a feel for the flow. Pack it, let it cool off, wire brush it. Now you're ready for the next one. I'm going to probably hit another one on this real quick while it's fresh to ensure I got a nice weld around that little bracket. Now you always want to keep your gun as perpendicular as possible and as close as possible when you tack welding rusty sheet metal, because you want to have that shielding gas there for you. If there's any wind blowing, don't hit your tack, or you at least have to shield it with your hand and make a good faith attempt that you're going to keep the air off it. 3 more little tacks. I'm going to tap around the area, trying to make sure that wherever I'm going next is going to be down nice and flush. So challenge spot, I'll show you that's you can see I hit the tack on the big chunky part of the weld and dragged it over into my sheet metal, and now I've cut that gap in half. I'm letting it cool, I wire brushed it off, I'm going to snip my wire, and I'm going to hit another one on either side, and that's probably just going to be done and gone away. And then once I've got that, I'm going to start working all around, keep moving around, keep tapping with a hammer, and work my way down. I want to keep this cool, and one of the ways I can tell that it's getting hot is this parent metal just kept burning away in this corner. And part of it is because I had these little sheet metal gnaws that were probably, you know, pretty much cut through. And anyway, I'm going to let this cool off, but while I'm doing that, one of the things I did was put a blind up to keep some of the wind off of this, because the wind is blowing, and it's going to make it more difficult for you. So as long as you can put your hand on this after, you're doing good. If it's starting to get warm enough that you can't, you're just going to be creating issues for yourself trying to rush. So take your time, take my word, keep at it. Just went at the top of it, and you know, there's a lot of people who say you shouldn't tack this much in one row, but this is my experience with this stuff, is if once you get, you know, rusty sheet metal hot, you really should just kind of go at it as long as you can until it starts to fall apart, and then you should just stop, wait a little while, let it cool off. We're almost ready to start going down the sides here, and I'm actually pretty happy with those welds. we're just going to run over them lightly with a grinder and leave them. We need the weld there for the strength. At this point, we're all welded down to here, as you can see. But now I'm having a hard time keeping this flush, right? And I told you that it would create a challenge for tack welding. So at this point, I do have to cut this to length. And when I cut that to length, I'm going to actually bend a lip up on it to recreate this. And we're going to cut this section out. As I'm looking over the top of this, I'm going to draw a line where I think I should be bending that material. Actually, I'm going to go further back on that one. And I'm going to take these handbrakes and try to bend that up. Now, that's another reason why I left this long. Again, you want to have some meat to grab, something to manipulate, and we can always cut it off in the end. Now we got her bent up the way we want it, and I'm actually going to cut that chunk out now with the death wheel so I can lay this in there and we'll keep tacking. That cut out, now I'm going to start tacking my way down. And I'm actually going to come in here and I'm going to tack this. And if you see how that's got some black paint on it, I'm not going to tack it in that corner because I know I'm going to get a shitty tack. But if I tack right next to it, it will get this material hot enough that I can wire brush that area and the next tack will be clean. So don't tack on top of garbage. You can tack next to it and clean metal. You can clean that garbage right before you tack over it. A lot of the techniques I'm showing you I've learned from doing rust and rot repair on rockers and cab corners. Living in the Northeast, this is kind of a part of vintage equipment, should I say. So, you know, you get good at it, you learn some stuff. But one example I'm going to show you right now is obviously I didn't cut far enough this way. You started to get this crimp that I didn't want to deal with. And I felt like, you know, for the most part, the steel is decent. So what I'm going to end up doing here is I'm probably going to end up having to make another patch panel. Because this is keyholing pretty good. And I've got this other small micro cracks that I don't know if you guys can see. But this may not weld up. But the best chance I have is to let it cool off. You can see I'm touching it with bare hands right now. Because it's cold to the touch. It's atmospheric temperature. I've had it cooling down for a little bit. And what I'm going to do now is, because I've had success on the other side, I'm actually going to attack this side. And I'm going to do that because at this point I'm confident I can get this thing sealed up. So there's my mark I'm going to do. I kind of tapped around. There's an end cap in here that you could kind of see when I opened it up earlier. So you can't really, there's no sense in going much further this way. And I'm going to leave a little bit between that weld and there because I know I've likely got enough meat here. At least I can hit the weld if I have to. More of the same here. And you can see the wind's blowing pretty good. Oh, that's as much as we're going to bother cutting. I'm going to clean up the edge like I did the other side. And we can get a look down in here and see that realistically it's not much better up in there. So I really want to share this with you, and I can't express this enough. When it doesn't look like anything on the outside, it's a massive mess on the inside. So I started grinding back because I look in there and I can see that it's super rusty, right? Well, if you look, there were other pinholes further up, so I said, oh, well, I'll just cut up a little bit further. And so then I started grinding, and I found another one here. And you start looking around and you realize that it's the whole barrel all the way around is junk. And the reality is there's not much I'm going to do to fix it. All I can do is put a patch on it. So I'm really in like minimize my time mode at this point, because this is kind of an absolute waste. This is just going to get him time to find a new one. But that's really what we're buying here. Because think about it, all this thing is going to do is immediately rust wherever I've attached it. So on top of that, I found another spot after trying to inspect this thing. There was another, spot where it wasn't picked at that, is full of corrosion. It's under the bracket. It's going to require me to cut the bracket off. It's another patch panel. It's another thing. So this is how rot repair is. And when you think you're going to be, inspecting this stuff, remember, it didn't look that bad from the outside. But it's horrible. I mean, look at it. Junk. So we're going to get them some time, and that's it. Excuse the compressor. But there you go. I mean, what are you going to do with that? It's all junk. So this is an example of no good deed goes unpunished. Nobody's winning here. 75 hours later, no, I'm just kidding, but more time than I'd like later. We're getting there, but now I got to go back and get this guy. I'm having issues up top here. Of course, there's more rot, so I may actually just cut this out and go from here to here. Boy, I said she'd be ugly, man, but alright, so now we're going to cut from here to here. I'm going to leave these tabs. I'm going to cut this side of them and flip them up, and I'm going to basically build my patch panel to just under them, and then I'm going to fold them back down and weld them on top. More of the same. What a surprise. Clean up the edge, build a panel, put it back in, fold the tabs back down, weld them up. It's like they never moved. We going along and along. We're almost there. Alright folks, there you have it. The repair's all done. As you can see, it's as ugly as I promised, and I like it that way. So here I want to show you the ugly and I want to show you the good, So this is the reality of things, is I could grind these welds, but you'd be stupid to. They're filled with porosity, should I say, because this is what we cut out. So we welded to adjacent metal that looked like that on the backside. This is short-lived. This is just a band-aid to get him by for a little while, and I think I'm happy with the outcome for now, and this will buy him some time. And with that, I'm done with this video. I'm done with this project. Thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw, please comment, share, and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up too, because this is the type of real-world stuff I'm going to bring you guys along the way when I do body panels, any repair work. A lot of the skills that I kind of described while I was doing this apply to cab corners, apply to rockers. It's just the nature of the beast. It's not always pretty, but the functionality of this thing is good to go for a little bit. Alright, thanks again guys. We'll see you next week. I'm out.